You said what? I said what? I said 6. What? Alright. This is officially take 3 of me trying to stay accountable for my reading. I have been trying to record my 24-hour challenge, and I mean, I knew, but I didn't think I would fail, and guess who failed? Let me tell you. In the month of January, I actually read 6 books. 6 books. Shook, right? I know. Me too. Me too. But that's because, as I said, I've tried.
I've tried. 124-hour challenge and I keep on failing.
But I still kept on reading. So first book I read in 2021, as I shared in my previous video, was Season in Store by Andreas Sapolsky. And this again is a story about a witcher, Geralt. So as a witcher, pretty much they're like mutant, and so the role is to just go and earn money because we're all trying to be adults here and earn some money. But what they do is they go and they take on quests by like people, and people pay them, and then they like kill monsters. He is bounded to Ciri as anyone else. He's like, I'm not bounded by no destiny, I'm only bounded by death, because he's Geralt and Geralt don't care. But this book, Season in Storm, he went on a quest, and then people pretty much stole his sword. Like, people were so rude, like my bird too, look, rude in my book. But that's okay, little birdie, that's okay, little birdie. Again, the witcher need their sword to kill the monsters so that they can earn money, like how we need our hands. Yeah, so that was actually book 1 that I read in 2021. Or I guess half, because I read the other half and then I finally finished the half. But I actually rated this book 4 stars on my Goodreads. It was really good. The reason why I didn't get 5 was because, you know, it wasn't like a book that I like kept on holding. I kind of like put it down. It was like, okay. The first time I read like literally like halfway through the book and I was like, oh my god, this is so interesting, and I kept reading, and then it got like really boring in the middle, and so I think that's why I put it down for like I don't know how many months. And so after I picked it up, the latter half got really interesting again, and so I think that's why I gave it a 4 star. Then after that, obviously we read Sword of Destiny. This is the last book of the short story collections from the Tales of the Witcher series. And again, look at what my little birdie did. Rude. No, I'm just kidding. It's okay. My little birdie has taught me that I just need to buy hardcover books, and that's totally okay. But Sword of Destiny, which I think the title probably would make more sense if they had named it the Season of Storm one, because the Season of Storm one was about him losing his sword. Yeah, that's okay. I think Season of Storm came after this one, or like was published after. It was like the very last book published. Don't quote me on that. There are 6 short story collection, but I like to kind of bunch them up into like 4 little short story. And so I would say like the very first half of this book that you'll see that I really tried my first 24-hour challenge, which is right here. Okay, yeah, so sad to say that I still have about 23 more hours to go. With the 7 minutes till the last hour, I have read about 22 pages. I did read something. That kind of gives me a little base understanding that maybe I read about like 25 pages per hour. However, I do notice that this book, compared to the previous one, has a smaller font. And so even though the other book have about 400 pages and this one have like almost 400, because it's a smaller font, I actually think it's bigger than the previous book. It's a little cute birdie. He just wants to be in the video. I think it was really hard for me to start the book when it starts kind of slow. However, once I got past like the first 5 pages, I was like, oh, I think they're talking about Yennefer. Every time they mention Yennefer, I'm just so excited. So I'm like, I'm ready. But we shall see in the next couple hours how this goes.
A few moments later.
Do you hear baby Stitcheroo in the back? I hear baby Stitcheroo in the back.
More moments later.
Guys, I'm so excited because Yennefer finally made a debut. The sorcerer's eyes slowly swept over the company. Her shiny eyes come to rest for a while on the Witcher. Geralt smiled faintly. May I join you? But of course, good lady. Of course you can join me too. You need to hear this. From the very first day, you've been treating me as if I were nothing but air. So please continue. Don't let me bother you, because it doesn't bother me either. Yeah. You see, Yennefer, said Geralt. I see, she interrupted sharply. But I don't understand. Why did you come here, Geralt? Surely not because of the dragon. I presume nothing has changed in that regard. And he goes, no, nothing changed. Why then, I pray, have you joined the party? Girl, he came to see you. But you know, I don't know that. I read the law said. If I had said that it was because of you, would you believe me? Damn, get up, get it. Girl, why you never so savage? She goes, I believe you. Why not? She finally said. Men like to meet their former lovers, like to relive memories. They like to imagine that erstwhile erotic ecstasies give them some kind of perpetual ownership of their partner. It enhances their self-importance. You are no exception, in spite of everything. Okay, Yennefer, get it. Put him on the spot. Get up. He ain't falling down. Here you go. Nevertheless, he smiled. You're right, Yennefer. The sight of you makes me feel wonderful. In other words, I'm glad to see you. Oh, such a gentleman. But is he really, though? I mean... Okay, I have to look at this part because I was reading it. It was literally just like the paragraph I had. But then like, you know, she's like, okay, well, good night, whatever, peace out. And he goes, yeah. That's how you know he still loves her. And she goes, don't call me that. Yeah, Geralt, don't call her that. And folks, I am fully hooked because Yennefer. That's right, Yennefer. You go, Yennefer. Anyways, if anyone's interested, I was literally like, I don't know, age 31 to like 38. I'm barely at the beginning, but you know what? Maybe I might just keep on reading. Oh yeah, well. It was very interesting. And I think that's just because right now my favorite character is Yennefer because she's badass and she is very independent. And you know what? She just want a baby. Like, goodness, world, let her have a baby. But she can't have a baby. Or not yet. I don't know. I haven't finished the series. Anyways. So I would say like the very first story that got me really hooked, really intrigued was, you know, her story with Geralt. And then after that it goes on and talks about how Geralt meets a doppelganger. And then the next story, which I think is actually very interesting, is about a mermaid. What I like about Andreas Sapkowski is that he do a really well job at merging all of the tales that we know growing up. So for instance, The Last Wish have references to Beauty and the Beast, and then Sword of Destiny have references to The Little Mermaid. And I think what I liked about it is that there's this side character, or like also like pretty much a main character, but his name is Dandelion. And in the very first book, The Last Wish, it talks about how Geralt met Dandelion, and he is a singer and he writes ballads about the Witcher and the Witcher's adventures. And so what he do in his role is that after going on this adventure, he writes these ballads that are turned into tale that we now know. And so I thought it was really interesting that like the author would like incorporate that world into this like high fantasy world that like we don't know anything about, you know. So it kind of brought something familiar with the book. So that's what I liked about it. I think in Season of Storm they talked a little bit about like a fox in one of the stories. So when I read that one in the middle of the night, I was like, ooh, okay, hold up, it's getting a little scary. You know, but I managed to, I read it through and it was real good. It was a really good story. And then I would say after The Mermaid, the latter half, which is maybe like about 2 or 3 short story about Ciri that pretty much link up the short story series to the actual series. I did read a little bit about like just like the tiniest beginning of the series. The Last Wish, Season of Storm, and Sword of Destinies are pretty much short stories collection for you to get to know Geralt more, other side character like Yennefer, which is my favorite. Also how he bound himself to Ciri. After that, I was actually very intrigued and I really wanted to read more. But I found that what happened was that I got super overwhelmed with just reading The Witcher. Like, you know, I literally finished Season of Storm and then I read like Sword of Destiny, and then like I went straight into like Bloods of Elves. And like that was like, which was like book 1, that was like really intense and it was kind of crazy. After that I read Dr. Illuminatus by Martin Booth, and this is The Alchemist's Son. And the reason why I picked up this book was 1, it sounded interesting, and 2, I thought it was a standalone, but it was not a standalone, and so I was a little bit disappointed in that. Nonetheless, it was an okay book. I rated it 3-star, and the only reason why I rated it that was because I think at my age right now, I feel like this book was a little bit too young for me. I just like needed like a like more action, you know. So pretty much the 2 main characters are siblings and they moved to the countryside to live in this old estate house that their family owned. And what happened was, you know, as they were living there for a couple of days, they started hearing sounds from the walls, and you know, if it was me, that's time to go. That's when you leave, you know. You don't stay once you hear sound in the wall. But turns out that there's a little boy named Sebastian who emerges from within the walls, tell them that he's been in a slumber and he actually practiced alchemy. And he pretty much asked Pip and Tim to help him as he fight off this guy named Ludiac. I don't know how to say the name. That's why I read in my mind, because I don't know how to say the name. I don't think I will pick up the second book. And I know there's only 2 books as of right now because sadly the author passed away. If I was a little bit younger and I read this book, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But just because I didn't enjoy it, I'm not sure if I'm gonna pick up the second book. After that, there's more. What? After that, we read Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Funny thing, I actually picked these 2 books at Goodwill, and so they were like $3 each, you know. And I was like, oh, Memoirs of a Geisha, like $3, why not, you know? Let me see, original price. What is the original price? No original price. Don't know what original price is. But this is first edition, and so you'll see that it still has this this book where, you know, it's all the geisha. This story pretty much followed a little girl named Chio who was sold into the geisha world by her dad. She goes through a lot of turmoil and animosity in the geisha house that she lived in to eventually become a top-notch geisha. This will sound really familiar to you all. If not, and that's because it was the book that inspired the movie Memoirs of a Geisha. Yeah, it was the book that inspired that, and I actually did not know that when I picked it up. I actually really enjoyed the book. I think the way the author written it, maybe it's because I'm a beginner reader, but it was real easy for me to read. I thought it was really poetic. Other people, after I finished reading it, when I went to go look at the review, other people was like, this writing style is so bad. Like, it's so repetitive. But I actually really enjoyed it. It was great. As a beginner reader, again, like, you know, making reference again and then again and again and again to the same thing really helped me. I think I rated it a 4 still. Yeah, I still rated it a 4-star. I mean, I enjoyed the book, but I still rated it a 4-star. I think it's just super hard for any books to get 5-star, and I feel like the only reason why Sword of Destiny got it was because Yennefer was super badass. I just want to say, I read the book and then I watched the movie, and the movie was so disappointing. Yeah, like, I watched it as a little girl and I never understood the movie. Like, never. I knew I watched it and I knew it was about a geisha, and like the rest of us, it was kind of like, oh my god, like, why are like these geishas so exotic, you know? But then I read the book and I was like, okay, never mind, because I read the book and I watched the movie and I was like, wow, if I didn't read the book and I rewatched the movie, I would have still not understood what the heck the movie was about. Like, that to me was just, there's just so much taken out that, like, it just didn't make sense. But then I realized after I finished watching the movie that it was like 2 hours long, you know? It was like, I felt like the movie was too short to really like go through everything that the book went through. Then again, the movie was like 2 hours long, so it was still too long, you know what I mean? I just feel like the movie could have been better. But the authors are great. I love my Chong, if anybody know who that is. Though there's, you know, that complicatedness around the book, I would still say that I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It was like very poetic, it was very beautiful. I've never really read a book like this before, so it was really nice. The only thing, I think the reason why I didn't give it a 5-star, because I was always like, oh my gosh, like, why is this book so long? Or like, I feel like I read so much and like I was so into the story, and yet again I'm like, I'm only on page 100, or like, it's only been 50 pages, you know? Like, how can I enjoy something so much and yet it goes by so slow? This book, there was this scene in this book that got me so like, ugh, that got me so mad. I was so mad. I was literally like reading this in the middle of the night, and my my partner was sleeping next to me, and in my head I'm just like, oh man, what the heck? But if you read the book, you know what I mean. I think the last few chapters were like probably my favorite out of like the whole book, or like there was just this paragraph that just made me like, damn, like, this is love. Like, this is love, and that's why I like the book. But aside from that, it was alright. After that very good book, I went to The Dark and the Other Love Story by Deborah Willis. And let me just start off by reading what I read when I bought this book. Okay, let me just start off with there. It says, the characters in these 13 masterful and engaging stories exist on the edge of danger, where landscape melts into dreamscape and every house is haunted. A drug dealer's girlfriend signs up for the first manned mission to Mars. A girl falls in love with a man who wants to turn her into a bird. A teenage girl and her best friend test their relationship by breaking into suburban houses. A wife finds a gaping hole in the floor of a home she shares with her husband, a hole that only she can see. Full of longing and strange humor, the subtle, complex story about love between a man and his pet crow, an alcoholic and his AA sponsor, a mute migrant, and a newspaper reporter show how love ties us to each other and to the world. The Dark and the Other love story announces the emergence of wonderfully gifted storyteller whose story enlarge our perception about the human capacity to love. So I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds really nice. It's like, it sounds like a, you know, look at it. It's The Dark and Other. Like, it's dark. It looks scary. It says it's haunted. But let me tell you, it was the opposite. Let me not talk about the story first. Let me talk about the way the author writes. The way the author writes, beautiful. I really enjoyed reading the first story, which was The Dark. And I would say, I think that is my favorite story up until the one where this man lives with a crow. And that's because obviously I live with birds, and so that's my other, like, that's the second story that I like the most. I thought it was a little bit scary. I mean, the ending was like, the way the author writes, it's actually really beautiful. I think it was, again, really, it wasn't like, okay, unlike Memoirs of a Geisha, this book was not like simple writing. Like Memoirs of a Geisha was short sentences, very simple, very easy to read, very fast to read. This one was a little bit more like almost like better writing in a sense, but then I just did not like the stories. Some of the stories just kind of makes me like really uncomfortable. After I read it, I was like, okay, like, you know, it's like, you know, again, it does test our capacity, or like human capacity to love, but yet like once I step out of that story, I'm like, I don't really know about that. That was how I felt like reading a lot of the story. I was like, I don't know. Well, I would say the first story that I read, The Dark, was one of those stories where it just hits you like boom, you know, and you're like, oh, what? Okay, so The Dark, let me just give you a little quick brief background. Let me see. Wait until they stop crying. Okay, so we got one of the crying birds, so hopefully there's less crying. Hopefully there's less crying, but pretty much, again, it was about two little girls who was about 13, and by the time the story ended, I was just like, oh, what just happened? You know, it was one of those stories that's just like, oh my god, I want to know more. Oh no, Birdie flew away. But like, that's it, like that's all you get, and we're just like, what? How can you leave me with that? You know, like, hurt my heart. But I would say the rest of the stories was just kind of like, it was like a win-lose situation for some of the stories. So I gave it okay, Purdy, there. Okay, so I gave it a 3 stars. You know, even though some of the stories made me a little bit uncomfortable, the writing styles of the story, it was still really good. Still got a 3 star. It was like a no, like I didn't truly hate it. It made me uncomfortable, but like it was like an okay me. And then what? Yeah. And then what? Okay, he is now the spotlight of the vlog now. Alright, but let's go to my very last book, the most interesting of all, the one that I kind of stretched in there, and that is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. I kind of squeezed it in because, you know, I kind of took an extra 2 days in February to read it, but like I was like, I had like 150 pages left. This was the book that I actually tried for my second 24-hour challenge.
Flashback.
Alright, let's see how far we get, because it's kind of late. and we kind of tired, but we gonna do this. Yes, we're starting at page 54. A lot of these books I kind of start like reading a couple pages here and there, a couple pages here and there, but we don't know what the book is about. Yeah, and I'll keep you updated on what the book is about. Okay, yeah, it's been about like 1 hour since I started this. Check out my contacts. You know, it's 1:30 in the morning, and really sad to say that I've only read about like maybe like 20 25 pages, and that's just because like I don't know what it is about this book, but it was just so confusing to understand. Like I kept having to read passage again and again, and it's just like I think there's just too much God being introduced all at the same time. I don't know, but something really interesting is happening. Quick last update for the night. It is about 3 in the morning, and I'm really tired. I'm reading and like imagining words, so I think it's time for me to take a quick nap. On page 122. Yeah. As I said, the book was really difficult to read at the beginning, but I think once it started becoming more fantasy, it was so much simpler to understand. Everything just went by so much faster, and so it's actually pretty interesting right now. I think I'm just too exhausted, and I don't want to force myself to read. I want to be able to enjoy this as I read it. So I'm gonna go to sleep, and then yeah.
End of flashback.
It was good. I would say I stayed up for a good like 5 hours. Stayed up for like a good 5 hours to read it, and then like I just yeah, came back and then read the last like 150 pages. Tell me why I was like, oh, it's gonna take me like 2 hours. It took me another like 7 hours to finish reading the book. Yeah, 7 hours. But that pretty much sums up what I read for 2021 in January, and I think that is actually a really great start to doing my reading challenge. Like, again, 6 books. You said what? I said what? I said 6. What? Yeah, 6. Yeah, and I am officially, I believe it was 23% done with my 21 books. Starting off a little bit strong, and then give you a little hint of what I'm reading, and that is Where the Crawdads Sing. I heard about this book a lot. I just never read it. Let me tell you right now, I'm having a really hard time reading this book right now. I'm literally reading it out loud. Yeah, but stay up to date. We'll see what happens in February. So subscribe and follow along.